Brian Flores, the very successful, like you look at what he did with what he inherited with the Dolphins and what he turned them into. Former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, filed a class action lawsuit against the New York Football Giants and the NFL, claiming racial discrimination. He says he can prove that the Giants interviewed him as a Rooney Rule show after deciding to hire Brian Dable. I mean, this is one of the issues with the Rooney Rule that we you can just think about and understand could easily happen, and we've actually seen where a team knows who they want to hire, but because that candidate is not African American and they want to check off the Rooney Rule, they make a big show of interviewing so-called minority candidate in order to fulfill the rule. But in fact, they'd already made their decision, and that appears to be the case here. That's at least what Flores is alleging, guys, because he has a text from Patriots head coach Bill Belichick congratulating Flores on getting hired by the Giants. Well, Flores hadn't interviewed yet. So you say, well, what does that do? Well, in fact, the series of texts, one of them, the final one, says, sorry, I bleeped this up. I double-checked and misread the text. I think they're naming Brian Dable. I'm sorry about that. So, in other words, Bill Belichick thought he was texting Brian Dable saying congratulations on the hire. Turns out he was texting Brian Flores. He must have stuff in his phone under the first name and not the last name, right? So the two Brians are right there. Thought he was texting Brian Flores and kind of spilled the beans. So that's the setup. Key and Harry, as two accomplished and intelligent former African-American NFL players, I am very interested in hearing your points of view on this subject. Key, let me start with you.
Well, let me first start off by saying the Bill Belichick situation, let's be clear. Bill wasn't in cahoots with the New York Giants. Bill Belichick has information because he's dialed into the entire National Football League. And I believe Bill would have done the same thing had it actually been Brian Flores that he coached with for 10 years. But in this situation, it just so happened he read the wrong name, did his texting, and was like, oops. And so when you start there, I just want to be clear because I don't want people to think that Coach Belichick is like in cahoots with the Giants.
His mustache somewhere. Yeah. Ain't like that.
So
no.
It's not like that. He just happened to text the wrong person, and because he got the information because he's dialed into the National Football League. Now, on the larger thing, the moment that the Giants made the decision to hire Joe Shane from the Buffalo Bills, first, second, third, or fifth interview, I knew that Brian Flores was just there because of the color of his skin. I knew that. Anybody that understands the National Football League and the way that they're trying to do things from a copycat league standpoint, we all knew that it wasn't going to be Leslie Frazier, because Leslie Frazier essentially does not develop quarterbacks on the offensive side of the ball. And what is it, the one thing that the Giants desperately need is to figure out Daniel Jones. So Brian Dable was the guy all along. The sad part and the disrespectful part is they made a decision before the second interview of Brian Flores. He interviewed originally on Zoom and then was going to have an in-person interview. He thought in his heart of hearts that he would have a real opportunity because that's what he was being sold. So imagine sitting in a room knowing that they've already made a decision, even though they haven't publicly announced it, but privately have told people they made a decision, but they still need to meet a certain quota by interviewing and making it look and sound as though you have a real opportunity when they're just wasting your time. Now, the fact that he has receipts that come via Bill Belichick is something explosive, in my opinion. I am not a legal expert or a lawyer. The only thing I can do is look at it on the surface as what it is. You look at the same hiring practice the San Francisco 49ers made with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan at a time that they partnered up an interview with Josh McDaniel and Louis Riddick. But did they really want to hire Louis Riddick as a general manager? Or was that just something to do until they got to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, my former teammate? Or you look at most recently with the Las Vegas Raiders and what they've decided to do. Pair two guys from the New England Patriots to take over their organization. Did anybody else have a real shot and a chance? And so that is the copycat way of doing things. You look at the Buffalo Bills and the success they've had with my good friend Brandon Beam at the general manager spot and Sean McDermott at the head coaching spot. They came together from Carolina. So, Harry, when you look at these things, on the surface, it's very disappointing.
Yeah, Key, I think it's more than disappointing, and I think it's sad on a lot of cases. When you look at Brian Flores and what transpired, but not just him. Think about all the other coaches of color who have interviewed for these jobs, knowing 100% that they weren't going to get them, and they're just.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.